Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, Nick, I've got a hell of a story for you. You're going to love this. Okay, so my brother from Sydney came over to visit, and basically he told me that when he first moved to Sydney a few years ago, he worked in this chocolate shop, and this American walked in and he said he was from Apple, and what he was in Australia for was to road test Apple News when it was in beta mode. And he basically, from my brother behind the counter, he basically asked him if he wanted to check it out. And my brother was like, oh yeah, cool, Apple News, sweet. And then he prompted him to download it on his phone, but unfortunately my brother had a Samsung on him. So I could not believe it when he told me that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. And just to back this story up, in a rather inebriated state, I recorded the conversation. So I'll tack that on the end of the episode for anyone who wants to have a listen. So, yeah.
That's really cool. I wouldn't have imagined that to have happened where, they'd be trying to get extra testers or extra feedback, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like that this guy had been sent over to Australia specifically for, which would be awesome to do. I just wish I was there when it happened, because he was telling me it was no big thing. I'm like, what? This is how? When? More details. And he's like, oh, I don't really remember. I'm like, oh, come on. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I suppose, yeah, must have been pretty awkward pulling out a Samsung.
Yeah, he is very much, he's enough of an Apple fan nowadays anyway, so he's got his success on him. So, yeah. And moving on to the other bit of news, in case you missed it, we launched the Appleslice website. I was really stoked to do that. So if you haven't seen it, head to appleslice.com.au. And in typical Apple fashion, we think you're going to love it. So definitely check that out. It's got extra stuff like timestamps and links to various things that we talk about. So yeah, definitely get on it. And if you would like to receive episode notifications via email, that is now up and running. So we're going to send our first one out as of this week. So sign up while you're there. But yeah, I want to kick it off with product perception. And with yourself being the Nike fan, there's been another new release in this area?
Yeah, I don't know if it was kind of like a quick announcement to release where this is a new Nike Plus Apple Watch. It's a special or limited edition through one of Nike's sort of subsidiary brands, NikeLab, which is kind of where they get big designers or sort of do more futuristic looking design. So NikeLab made an Apple Watch, which basically just is the current Nike Plus Apple Watch Series 2, but with a different color band. So it's the space gray one with what they call a light bone and then black color combination. But it's the light bone is the main body of it, with the black being like the whole insert. So if you've seen the black with the vault, it's kind of where the black was there, that's where the light bone is, and where the vault was that's where the black color is.
Some
now.
People refer it to kind of almost like the Oreo color combination.
Yeah,
like a real dark and creamy good. Sort of color. Yeah.
Good one. It's quite a nice color. I hadn't really checked it out too much on because the light bone was also released with the WatchOS 3.2, I think it was.
Yes, yep.
And at least on the Nike Plus ones, and I hadn't really checked it out, but since it was launched, I changed one of my Nike Plus watch faces to include that color because I actually liked it. So, it was launched on the 27th of April, and it was only available through NikeLab stores, Nike.com, and one Apple Watch store in Japan, in Asiten Shinjuku. I probably got that one wrong, but it's my best attempt. And, but unfortunately I wasn't able to see it through the Australian site. So initially I thought that was just a timing thing where it hadn't gone live in Australia yet, given time zone differences, but I still haven't been able to locate it on our version of the NikeLab store, which is quite disappointing. I wasn't gonna get one.
I just saw I took a direct link that looked like it was about to load the US one, then it forced me to load the Australian one, and then that said this item is not in stock or does not exist or something, and then I tried the US link and then that also had the same thing.
Yeah, so I think they're sold out now, which is why I was saying basically been talking about this watch in the past tense. Partly because I think they sold out and partly because they're no longer relevant to pretty much anyone in Australia, which was surprising because I didn't really get the sense that it was region lockdown or like specific to a few regions. So it's quite disappointing, but it was a limited edition, and we've seen this sort of thing happen on the Nike Watch bands at least.
So does your Nike Watch have any engraving on that pin on the inside of the band?
Let me check quickly. I think it says Nike Plus on it.
Yeah, because this one said it was the details stated it was custom engraving. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no engraving on my one. It's just the standard sort of black inset pin.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's I love this color combination. It's cool that they did do another exclusive release in this area. It kind of hints at, with the extra colors that came through WatchOS 3.2. Could we expect another band release soon using that blue color? That'd be pretty cool.
I don't think so. I don't think that'll happen. But
this is basically usually the situation, if anyone doesn't realize, is that Nick is more of the realist and I'm more of the, oh yeah, they'll release that. Just like ever optimistic about things that may come out. So
yeah, I would obviously love for that to happen. It's just, I kind of see it working that way where they will have at least every band color on a watch face color, but I don't think that all the watch face colors will be bands.
Yeah. All right, so that's the NikeLab Watch. You can we'll leave a link to the gallery for it on the website, so you can check them out there. But moving on to Rumour Mill. So iPhone 8, or whatever you want to call it, Anniversary Edition, iPhone X. I don't know, there's many different names floating around. We still don't have any indication as to what it could be called specifically, but there's just been an absolute inundation of conflicting leaks and renders and schematics, mainly regarding Touch ID and the dual lens camera. So I think we'll discuss this in the future when there's more solid evidence, because we kind of don't want to mislead anyone or get someone too excited about a particular possible design move. But there are two factors that are pretty much guaranteed. So referred to as a bezel-less design. We've spoken about this a lot. This is definitely something that you would see with the Samsung Galaxy S8 and a lot of other Android phones. It's kind of fair to say this is going to become the standard of mobiles, of the flagship ones from now on. And so it's looking like that there'll be a uniform micro bezel all around the iPhone. They're talking 4mm. I was kind of hoping for less, maybe 2 or 3, but 4's still pretty good. And of course, I wouldn't want them to, push to a 2mm micro bezel if that meant that they, couldn't have embedded Touch ID or whatever reasoning. It's looking like 2.5D, as they call it, contoured glass edge, which is definitely good because I didn't want them to round the edges too much, a la the Samsung way. I like, I'd like to have that little bit of rounded edge, but I feel like, if you're going to kind of push the display too far around the corner, it kind of seems a little bit redundant. And a metal frame, possibly stainless steel. And I don't know whether this would be like an optional upgrade a la Apple Watch. And the actual physical size is looking to be very similar to the 6, 6S and 7, but just the actual screen itself, that's a lot larger. So, you're feeling like these are pretty near certain details, or?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to tell on this one. We've been getting, so what usually happens is around this time we'll get a leak that everyone will say, oh, that's no ways what Apple's going to do, and then that's pretty much exactly what the phone ends up looking like. But in the past month, we've had about 3 or 4 different ones that have come up. Some of them conflicting and some really like just having similar facts. So I think the bezel size, at least on the render that I saw or the schematic that I saw, seemed to be one of the more reputable schematics. I think the 2.5D glass is pretty much a certainty, and then the metal frame we've been hearing for a while. So I think, you know, these sort of things are on the lockdown. They're more likely to happen. Some other stuff that, you know, I think they're trying to just get in time, like the fingerprint sensor being in the display. That sort of stuff I don't think we'll get certainty on yet.
The only thing I'm a little bit questionable about is the uniform fact of it. I mean, I'd love a consistent bezel all the way around, but I'm more looking at where your earpiece and front-facing cameras are. Like, it would be awesome having uniform all the way around, but I still feel like that top bezel is going to be that bit larger, and it's not actually going to be part of the display like some of these renders have, where it's kind of got the earpiece cut out in the display.
Yeah. So apparently it's possible on OLED displays for it to just be cut out because it's they're each individually lit. So it's technically possible. Whether they do it or feel that that's the right thing, I'm not sure. Or maybe 4mm is enough to cover the, you know, go past the speaker on the top end. I'm not exactly sure.
I think one of the main differentiations between the S8 and this will be the fact that I really feel like that the iPhone 8 will have the screen all the way to the bottom. Like the S8 has top and bottom bezels, and it's the left and right that is more the, you know, wow factor to it. So and now another one that's been, we've spoken about it a bit, and there's essentially 2 forms of it. So wireless charging. So at the very least, the iPhone 8 will have inductive charging where you'd have to place it on some form of like pad charger, which we've previously discussed that isn't the greatest way to charge, because as soon as you take it off, then it's not charging anymore. And of course, I'd assume that if this is the method they go with, then there will very much still be your charging port at the bottom. Now, there's a rumor of like truly wireless charging where it will charge within a 5-meter radius. I mean, if they pull that off, I feel like it's kind of unlikely for this time around, but if they did pull it off, that would be an absolute game changer. So what's your feelings towards these 2 options?
Well, we already have wireless charging on the Apple Watch, so it's not like they're not capable of doing it. I don't know why it's taken this. Well, I do know that it's technically pretty difficult, if not impossible, through metal. So I think that's been one of the things that's been holding it back. So I think we'll see at least inductive charging for sure, but I don't think we'll see long range yet. I think Apple might have been really hoping to get that in as like their first attempt, but I'm not sure that the technology is there yet. I think we might have seen it pop up around at least somewhere. Cause I don't know if they would invent this from scratch or work with like an industry body, or I don't really have a sense of these sort of periphery technologies and how much of a role they take in developing them from scratch. So like I think stuff like multi-touch displays existed before the iPhone and were kind of around but weren't massively marketed, whereas now I think if something like this came out, we'd know about it pretty quickly in this sphere that we follow.
And to look even further into a future, which would be amazing, but Apple placed a Wi-Fi charging patent. So it's basically described as wireless charging and communication systems with dual frequency patch antennas. So basically your device charging within Wi-Fi range, just using the existing technology. So the patent itself only covers the theories of how it could work as opposed to actual specific operating details. I mean, this would be amazing, but I feel like this is sort of at least 3 years away. I mean, it's a real kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I heard a story about Steve Jobs when the iPhone was released. He saw all Wi-Fi hotspots as being public Wi-Fi hotspots in the future. So basically no one would have like a password. And as you're walking down the street, you're just hopping on one network and from one onto the next, seamlessly. And that's sort of the way he envisaged, networking to be in the future. And obviously that didn't happen. I think partly for privacy and security reasons and partly for selfish reasons. You know, if I'm paying, why should someone just walk past and get on it? But something like charging, you know, if you have a dual frequency sort of Wi-Fi and charging at the same time, that would be cool if you could just go anywhere and constantly have your phone be connected to power.
Yeah, can you imagine all the power bank accessory makers just... I can imagine they'd be absolutely pissed off.
Yeah, I think they'd have to pivot their business model.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be amazing. Yeah, just walking into a cafe and it's... oh, yeah, that's real future stuff. And Apple Size will be there to cover it when it comes out. So there you go. And moving on to something that is very much more recently just popped up out of the woodworks. We've kind of ummed and ahed about it over the past year, but it's looking like there's been some movements with Siri Speaker for WWDC. This is something I mentioned and hoped for in the predictions episode. But yeah, how did this come about again?
Yeah, so I was going to say, speaking of the real future, or the long-term future, Siri Speaker. So basically, fellow Australian Sonny Dixon, I think he's from Melbourne, he's been a bit hit and miss with his predictions, or at least in their timing. So I don't know how much weight I'll put to this, probably about 60%, probability of this happening. So he reckons there could be a Siri Speaker at WWDC, which would be absolutely amazing. And that, he does say Apple's finalizing the design, but I think they would have had the design locked down by now. And, it's being marketed supposedly as a Siri/AirPlay device, which I don't know why they even would speak about AirPlay at this time. I think even Apple's not too sure about how they want to move forward with AirPlay. If you've seen since iOS 10, they've split up like the sound AirPlay and the video AirPlay into two different control center tabs. So, you know, I don't know how much they really care about it. And then supposedly it contains Beats technology, which I think, you know, he doesn't really get a gold star for predicting that one. It's like Apple owns Beats, that's their sound brand. So that one was a bit obvious.
I think just the good part about that just kind of reconfirms that they're going to be focusing on it having good sound.
Yeah.
Like, don't expect it to be an average speaker. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I actually quite like Beats, and yeah, some people will hold on to the fact that Beats were just monster rebrands with heavy bass. I don't think that's the case anymore. But I think that is well regarded as the case, that Beats is just good for a lot of bass. So if they are going, hopefully, if they're marketing this as sort of a premium sound with Beats, it can up that brand sort of quality. I know it's highly sought after and really popular. But
plus I think if there's any audiophiles out there are going to be sourcing their own speakers.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you know what I mean? It's kind of like the people that probably would more likely complain about it. They're gonna have their own sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I would reckon someone like Phil Schiller has probably a tens of thousands dollar speaker system in his house. I just have a feeling I'm going to go with that one. I don't really care if it's right or wrong, but I would imagine that if he does, he would want something that would fit in with that. So we might see if it's not, it could still be an audiophile, a system for an audiophile, in that it could interface with some of the other technology that's around. So, you know, if you have other AirPlay speakers, as it's marketed, it could AirPlay to them. So maybe that's why that whole conversation about it being marketed as an AirPlay device could come in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So he also said it'll run a variant of iOS. We see watchOS, tvOS, and iOS are all sort of based, obviously iOS is all sort of based off of iOS. So I would imagine that if it is, it could probably just be like SpeakerOS and still just run. So when you go through through Xcode to make apps, there's sort of there's one fork in the road, with one way going to macOS apps and then the other one to iOS apps, which is then has like Apple TV and watchOS apps as part of that. So I would imagine they would just filter into the iOS fork of development, and that's probably where that goes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then the design apparently would look like the Mac Pro, which would be just really hilarious that they just come out and said, look guys, you really made a mistake with the Mac Pro, and then just release the exact same design, but with a sort of mesh finish similar to the UE Boom, which is I think it's waterproof, which explains why it has that sort of mesh finish. I don't know, but
I kind of think maybe he's comparing it to Amazon Echo, where it's got that mesh design. And then he mentions about a concave top, which would be like Google Home. So it kind of sounds like he's sort of Frankensteining the two together.
We'll see. I really hope it does come out, but yeah. So KGI also is more reliable, and they've said that it will be announced at WWDC, which you and I, specifically you, had sort of predicted that it would be a WWDC announcement. I've seen these things come up since the days of the Apple TV rumor, and I have been let down so many times. That's why I'm skeptical to say, like, why announce a hardware product at a software event and then only release it later? So the real answer, I think, there is that Siri, well, let's look at Amazon Echo and Google Home. They're really powerful because of the digital assistants that are with them, right? They're powerful because they interface with other things. And developers help that. So if you want your WhatsApp message read, or you want to order an Uber, you want to book an Airbnb, you kind of need those guys to do it, right? Like Apple is a huge company, but they can't do every sort of feature under the sun. And Apple Watch is a great example of that. Like they have great built-in software that you barely need third-party apps, but the third-party apps do make a difference. So
yeah, I feel like that the reason, exactly as you say, they would have it at WWDC is to show off this new variation, like preview the device, show off this new variation, iOS, version of iOS it runs on, and then the developers will have hands-on access and workshops and stuff after the actual event. They kind of get to, try out the device and see exactly how they have to code everything and what's involved, and then therefore an actual launch later in the year.
Yeah, so he also said that it would be more premium than the Echo and have complementary accessories, which you might have some thoughts on.
They're just alluding to the W1 chip, so I'm just kind of thinking obviously AirPods, but they're gonna release just I don't know exactly what, but just some other things using W1 chip. I
was thinking about that. I think it might go, instead of seeing it as complementary accessories for the speaker, I probably would see the speaker as the complementary accessory. So when they sort of like, if they've heard that there's W1 chip, they're probably thinking like, they're thinking W1 chip to AirPods, but I'm thinking W1 chip back to iPhone to get because Phil Schiller and a few of the other execs had said that speakers are cool, like these devices are cool, but the best assistant has a screen, which is why we thought it might be integrated with Apple TV in future, but it looks like they are going with standalone device. And if it has that sort of chip, it could be an indication that they would link back to the iPhone for any visual stuff that you may need, like a web query or whatever. And so one other thing that we might want to think about here is that about last June, there started being there was some news that internal testing was taking place at like the execs' homes, or undertaken by execs, and that usually happens about a year before release. So the timing is quite looking
Lines
quite
up,
good.
Yeah. Yeah, and bring it back to the thing about this device having great sound is KGI then pushed that it would feature 7 tweeters and a subwoofer. So, yeah, they're definitely kind of not going half-assed here. And the bit that's most exciting about this is obviously iPhone is the biggest selling product, and so we get all the rumors, all the everything, just all the time. And when you have something that's less known about and obviously even more secretive, such as this Siri speaker, I just love the fact that it was just bubbling in the background, and then suddenly, Sonny comes out with this information, then KGI 2 days later comes out with more information, and WWDC is getting closer, and it's just, this excitement, whereas kind of the iPhone 8 has just been this slow kind of ebb and flow over the past 2 years, I can't wait to see what they do with it. Really hope it comes out WWDC, or announced, revealed.
Like, I appreciate that they'll focus on good quality sound, but I also feel like with these devices, having more is better than having few good ones. Like, I'd rather have more okay ones than just one really good one. So I'd rather have one in my bedroom and my shower and my TV room and my lounge than just one in the lounge, I
mean, that may be the accessory part of, like Amazon Echo and Echo Dot.
Yeah.
Dot coming in like 6-packs and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, well...
So they could have the central main premium one and then kind of this little sub-version of it.
Yeah, it would be cool. So, yeah, I'm really excited. And I know, would you be getting one if they were, let's say they were announced, let's call it 400 Australian. It's probably way over what it would be. Let's just call it 400 Australian. Would you be getting one?
It would be one of those things that I would really want to. I just don't know. I'd have to see kind of the demos and that. I don't know how much I'd use it. Like, I'm only just now kind of using Siri more because of AirPods and Apple Watch. So I mean, guaranteed I can imagine you getting one straight away. So yeah, I mean, I love it. There's still, as I've mentioned before, there's still kind of that awkwardness with sort of just speaking out towards a device. It is becoming more natural, particularly for me with, using maps in the car and that sort of thing. So I feel like, if I kind of build up towards that, it just becoming second nature, then yeah, it would feel more natural. But I don't know anyone that has, obviously Google Home's in Australia. I don't know anyone that has an Echo. So it's all very much new, but it may go the way of the AirPods where just kind of curiosity just gets to me and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll be getting one. Let's see.
I think your main goal is to be the first in Sydney to get it.
Probably.
Yeah.
I might try a different store this time though. Maybe mix it up a bit. So.
Yeah. If you could film the experience, that would be amazing.
There's not much to film at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, and the security guards will probably get a bit iffy, but...
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to Core Focus as well as Apple Verts. So Core Focus being about Apple executives in the media, and there's some adverts that directly relate to this. So Apple executive Lisa Jackson was recently interviewed. For anyone that doesn't know, she's the VP of Environment, Policy and Social Initiatives. So, Who did she speak to, and what's she kind of pushing here? Some big goals, I see.
Yeah. So firstly, I'll say that Lisa Jackson is really awesome. Great person. So she spoke to John Gruber. He's the host of the Talk Show podcast, and I think generally looked upon favorably from within Apple. They worked with him before, and he's had an interview. He's had quite a few interviews with these high profile people.
And he was part of the Pro pre-announcement.
Yeah, he was at that table. So
yes.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me on that one. I forgot about that. So basically their newest goal that they announced this year, which they keep on harping on about how it's very unlike Apple because it's not it has an open end and they don't really know how they're going to get there. Usually when Apple does announce things early, they'll at least have an idea of how they're getting there, or it will already be done. So that goal from this year is to create a closed loop supply chain, and also could be looked at as no mining of the earth for their materials. So essentially just using everything that's already been taken out of the ground and it is existing in some manufactured way already, and using that in their future devices, which I think is really amazing. And they got a lot of flack and maybe had to over explain that they don't quite know how they're going to do this yet. But the fact that they're even thinking about it is astounding and just really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of thing is kind of like what happens to myself at my work. You set these, what are referred to as BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goal, and it's just like this goal that you don't entirely know how to get there. It's this massive goal, and you just kind of work, you implement various practices and everything as steps to get there. And I find that a lot of the time that these things happen, you actually usually reach that goal, and then you look back and you think, oh, I can't believe 3 years ago we thought this was impossible. So that's the bit that's very exciting about this. But yeah, I'll kind of let you continue.
If they thought of this being achieved in 25 years, I would think that would be great. It sounds like really far from now, but it's such a crazy goal. It would have such far-reaching effects that, especially if they are as popular in 25 years as they are now, but it would just be really cool. So hopefully they lead off something there across the industry. I think that's what my biggest hope is. I sort of would be happy in the 25-year framework. How long do you think it would take them to do?
Yeah, originally I was like overly optimistic. I was like, 15 years. And then the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be more like at least year 20 to 25. But the fact that there's all this focus in all these different areas and all these little ways that they can improve that have a big effect, something that may be seen as so small, but then you multiply that by the amount of units, say, of an iPhone or whatever, and it has this huge impact.
Yeah.
So the fact that, this whole goal is looking towards all Apple products being made from recycled parts and materials, and then so no waste to the landfill.
Yeah.
So no mining the earth and no dumping waste to the earth. So
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah. So they also announced that they 100% renewably powered in 24 countries and 96% overall. And I think part of that stat was 100% for all retail operations. So I really just think it's manufacturing that brings them down. And the way they do this is by pumping. They know how much they need in terms of usage, so they'll make sure that they pumping that back into the supply chain when they have excess, and taking back from the power grid. Taking back from the power grid when they don't have renewable energy, but balancing out at 100% renewably powered in 24 countries. So that was really cool, and I like the fact that they don't just negate their supply chain. They include their supply chain in these stats. So, if all your heavy industrial usage sits out of your company name, it's easy to get these stats inflated. And I think Apple's gained trust in the fact that they really care about this. And that can also be seen in what a prominent spot the environment gets in the keynote. So Phil Schiller always takes the time and dedicates a whole slide. It sounds crazy just saying they dedicate a slide, but having that space on one of the biggest platforms is really important. So they talk about the energy steps that they take and what the product ratings are, and bring all that sort of stuff up. So one of the huge focuses on the podcast was the fact that they have PVC free power cords, and what doing that actually means. That would make the power cord weaker. I think anyone with a lightning or 30-pin cable might say yes. Well, let's say lightning, because I think it's a recent development. But overall, they look at these things and they it's just something we never see, but they're working, like they're doing, I know it's really popular, for YouTubers now to get their like DNA test results, and I'm like 4% African and 2% Persian and, you know, whatever else they are. And she sort of said that they're doing this for their products to find out what is in it, because it's not always entirely obvious, right? It should like,
yeah, it's like this lightning cable is so Persian right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So they're finding out like all the harmful, I'm going to say ingredients in their products and trying to work those out. So packaging is made almost entirely out of paper, and they focus on using recycled paper and making it smaller and lighter, which Apple has always been minimal on the packaging. But one of the things I found really amazing, it was a cool anecdote in the podcast, was Lisa Jackson said that one of her first sort of weeks at Apple, she had a dinner where the head of packaging, I think it was packaging, was at the table with her and just said, I've been thinking for a long time, and I really think that Apple should buy a forest. And she said that was the first time that she was introduced to thinking differently at Apple. And
yeah, think differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, good time, but yeah.
I think that's so cool. I think it's amazing to work for a company where you can just say, hey guys, we should buy a forest because that would, you know, this is what we need to do to achieve our goal. And they could, move forward with that. So I think they own forest through people, like through vendors. Like, let's say someone owns the forest and then Apple just buys the whole thing without, like, let's say licenses it. It was kind of how it seemed to work. So John Gruber questioned her about, Lisa, about the carbon footprint, essentially, of transporting all of the products from China across the world. And Lisa Jackson indicated that it's about 4% of their carbon footprint, which was, I think, way lower than he expected, and probably than most people expect. This is stuff like shipping and flying the goods across, but essentially she sort of said, you know, it's 4%. We do what we can there. Some of it's a reality, and we can tackle much bigger things. So that's where our focus is now. So fair enough point, I guess. Yeah,
it's like they're thinking about it and they'll get there, but let's focus on the areas with most impact.
So I don't know how many people know, but Apple has like a Apple Renew program where you can either trade in or just recycle old Apple products. So I know with iPods, if you give in an old iPod, you get 10% off the value of a new one, which I think if you have like really young kids, sure, that's a good thing. Or else just being part of contributing to the environment, like environmentally friendly causes, just taking your old products that have no value.
Yeah, it's like if you had, you know, an old iPhone that accidentally got cracked or went through the wash or something, and it's well and truly, you know, you can't revive it. Just don't throw it in the bin. Just take it to Apple Store, or you can actually organize through the site where they'll send you a, you know, return mailbox or envelope, and then those materials can still get recycled and used for new Apple products, and basically, going this step towards this closed loop supply chain.
Yeah, I think one of the slogans or sayings coming out of this was that part of making the best products in the world is making the best products for the world, which is...
Yeah, that was a great one. Yeah, I listened through to the interview once and I picked that out. I thought, that'd be great to, you know, mention that quote there. And then I re-listened to it again, and then I had to kind of go back again and find out exactly where it was. But this is a really cool interview to listen to. There's a transcript available online as well. But we'll leave links to the actual episode itself in the timestamps.
Yeah, I might just give a quick story about how I listened to it. I tried Overcast's Apple Watch podcast app to download one for a run. So I listened to it there, which was a first experience. And if you are really into listening to podcasts all hours of the day, you could always try Overcast for your Apple Watch playback.
Cool. And so, yeah, directly tied with this, there are 4 Earth Day ads. So these are obviously on their YouTube channel, and they're range between 54 and 75 seconds long. Now, they're a completely different style to all previous Apple ads. They're by this film director and artist called James Blagden. He's done work for Nike and MTV and New York Times. Now, he typically uses kind of like a psychedelic style, colors, and very much the hip-hop culture themes. But these ads, which are like some of his work, are kind of like black and white pen drawings, and they include just areas of color that's green, gray, blue, and yellow. Now, it's the type of thing that I've seen this style of animation in documentaries and stuff on SBS and ABC before. I particularly remember growing up, where it's kind of like narrated and it's animated, but there's sort of minimal frames of animation. So I kind of think of it like halfway between a PowerPoint presentation and then like a fully fledged stop motion, which it's definitely got its own unique style. So before we kind of get into what actually happens in the ads, what did you think of this complete, design change?
I thought it was really cool. I thought it engaged like maybe a different audience, or just was distinct from product advertising. I also think cartoon Tim Cook is one of the coolest cartoon characters ever, but yeah.
Particularly the one where he inhales, and then I paused it, and his post-inhale face is actually really kind of like maniacal, so that was pretty funny.
I'll have to check that out.
I think it's more how the eyebrows are drawn, but definitely check these out. We'll link to these as well. And so Lisa Jackson, as we were previously talking about, and other Apple members feature in each ad, and they narrate. So there's kind of like these humorous elements peppered throughout them. I love the ending logo. It's the Apple logo, but it's kind of this cut out, drawn look, and a hand drawn leaf that kind of grows out the top. And you'll also see on their YouTube channel that the logo and the banner is in this like James Blagden hand-colored style, but it's more like the clean-edged logo. So yeah, first one called "Do Solar Farms Feed Yaks?" So this one features Lisa, and it's looking at how they have the 40 megawatt solar farms in China, which actually power all the offices and stores in the country. And so the whole question behind the ad is, okay, well, they've got these solar panels in the same area as the farm, so how does that affect, yaks that may live on the farm? So basically it's just showing that where they're positioned, the solar panels take what they need, still leaves enough light for the grass below to feed the yaks. And it's just kind of like this humorous off-kilter style. It's like, even just the titles of the adverts, you're like, well, what's this about? I'm gonna have to see it. So yeah, what do you reckon of that one?
It's really cool. I just like, again, the way that, they solve a problem where the farm can stay as is, which is great for people who are climate change deniers, and yet people who know that there is climate change can still have their solar farm without affecting anything. So that is really
it's
cool.
all about like coexisting together.
Yeah.
So it's like Apple have to build something and implement it to do a good thing, but with the smallest amount of impact on the actual natural environment that it's built on.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's essentially the message behind that one. But yeah, there's another one about zero waste.
It's John Reynolds, iPhone product operations guy, explains the process that happens at the Chinese final assembly facilities. So, each component, I think it was one of like the Touch ID sensors, comes in a little plastic tray that then gets taken off the plastic tray, and the plastic tray gets thrown away. And so essentially they just have so many of these plastic trays that just get thrown away. So he thought that they should just organize for them to be recycled, which is really cool. And instead of job well done, you're amazing sort of thing, they slapped him on the wrist kind of thing, and said, why do we have so many trays in the first place? Why aren't we doing this with pallets? What else can we do this with? And sort of pushed him I guess, and their team to come up with more ideas in this realm, which is really smart.
Yeah, it's like apply that idea, but look more at reusing them as well, rather than just having to send them away. So, I love the bit though when he's kind of like at the desk and he's facing the other corporates across of him, and then a little Tim Cook pops in at the end. And it just kind of like, it's so, like, you have to, it's real quick, but always just little things little humorous bits they insert. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
One I was thinking of when I was talking about Tim Cook earlier was this specific scene where he just like, he's sitting at the exact table, just pops his head in. It's just, it's just funny. I just like the fact that, cartoon Tim Cook
exists. Yeah. I want like a cut out version of it, but, and speaking of things that are a bit strange, so the next one was called Why Does Apple Make Its Own Sweat? I had no idea about this, and it's bizarre, but it's true. So Rob Guzzo, who's head of environmental technology, is basically in charge of skin safety. So looking at Apple products and making sure they don't harm our health or the environment. And he mentions artificial sweat, and then this little guy sitting on his shoulder, who's called Art Fong, and he's the green chemistry manager, describes it. So basically, Apple create artificial sweat to mimic after-use conditions, and they kind of like did this little thing of shows the guy making the sweat, and sprays it on like a little perfume bottle. It says "Odor Sweat" by Apple on it, and it's all quite bizarre, but it's all based on something of basically they're just showing the lengths that they go to in terms of the actual products themselves and any potential impact that they have, and the fact that there is a guy works at Apple that creates fake sweat like all day, and that's his job. So did you have any idea they did this?
No, I had no idea. I did enjoy crazy. This one quite a bit, sort of, especially as you say with the perfume bottle. It was funny. I think they made fun of themselves, a bit self-deprecating in a way, which was, it's good that they can also laugh at themselves, or at least that's the way I interpreted it.
Yeah. And so, we see Apple Park in the last one. Also
quite cool. So this one is, with their VP of Real Estate and Development, Dan Wissenhunt?
I think Wissenhunt, yeah.
So he's comparing standard buildings, which they draw basically a motorboat, or a motor that goes on a motorboat, and attach it onto a building and show how, aircon is just like that, sort of
very energy intensive. Yeah.
He also covers how that actually works. So how, Apple Park is like a sailboat, and they have these, it's basically like, if anyone's into computer gaming, it's basically like a water-cooled PC, but for a building, where they just run the cooled water through these pipes in the concrete. But yeah, they use the outside air to cool the water. So they basically use these like really thin pipes, I think, and so the water cools down quickly and creates the cooling. So it's pretty cool.
I thought that was amazing. It is pretty cool. Sorry, that was just like the longest pause for like the lamest pun. And yeah, anyway. But yeah, I thought they're cool, so definitely go check them out. But now we're going to move on to Uniquely Apple. So just some quick little tidbits about their exclusive content. Carpool Karaoke. It's delayed. So what's happening here?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with this. So they just said it's coming later in the year. I can't really think of any good reasons. I thought all of this stuff was locked down. They didn't have any reason to say it was coming in April, earlier on in the year, without knowing that it was for sure coming in April. Given the fact that the, trailer was already made, it looked like all of the filming had taken place. So I'm not quite sure what's happened here. But
maybe it bumped into some sort of licensing thing. I don't know. Yeah. But they do say apparently that there's actually up to 10 original series planned for this year. So that's I'll believe it when I see it scenario. But I think you and I are both more hanging out for Planet of the Apps, really.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Planet of the Apps. So hopefully whatever affected Carpool Karaoke doesn't affect Planet of the Apps.
Yeah. And so another little bit is, if anyone's used the service called Musical.ly, So basically, Apple Music has officially partnered with Musical.ly. It's a popular lip syncing music video social platform. Now, this platform switched from their original provider from the UK called 7 Digital. And so basically now, if you're an Apple Music subscriber, you get access to the full songs in the Musical.ly app, and non-subscribers just get a snippet. And partnering with Apple Music has allowed them to expand their country support from 30 to 120 countries. Now, I've never used it before, but I certainly know people that do, and I've seen videos from it. And I actually saw this announcement kind of pop up as a Facebook ad in like a video post format. And it's actually, I noticed it was Haley Steinfeld from Pitch Perfect 2, who's perfect to pitch to a tailored teen target. Bit of a mouthful there. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So something that's, I might try out, but there's just more ways that they're kind of, expanding their Apple Music user base, really.
Yeah. I hadn't really seen Musical.ly before, but sure. Why not?
Yeah. Cool. And we're just going to wrap this up with some edible extras. So Apple Car looks like it exists, at least in test format. So what's happening here?
Yeah, so in a plot twist, the Apple Car is a Lexus RX 450h SUV, which has been, my Siri just thought I said, "Hey Siri," but I didn't.
Oh, that's cool.
I said SUV, and
I heard that.
Yeah, so basically, I think it's a common car. They only really use very few cars for testing self-driving cars, which is quite interesting. Obviously, some have better dimensions than others. So this was earlier in April. They were granted permission to test self-driving cars on Californian public roads through Californian DMV. They've also issued a company letter requesting some changes to the self-driving test policies, which I had a quick read of. So there it states that access to data from self-driving tests is essential to public acceptance. And they didn't feel that this was currently the case. So when I had a read through, the stuff that this seemed to indicate was that they have to report all bad things, like all accidents, but they don't have to, or certainly there's no publication of missing accidents or avoiding accidents where humans wouldn't have been able to. So Apple is basically trying to get some be as transparent as possible. Yeah, to say, look, this is the bad side, this is what's happened there, but at the same time, we've also done this, which you may not have heard of. So they've also proposed some policy changes, some sections, there were some rules that were specific to cars that were not attended by a human driver, that they felt that those rules should also be the same as some other rules. So they're actually really getting involved with this policy, which is interesting. Yeah. And as I mentioned before, Google also uses this Lexus.
And I think the thing is that while we're talking about this, it's still, don't hold your breath yet, because it kind of looks like that they're actually using these off-the-shelf sensors and not actually Apple's own sensors, which would kind of indicate that the car is a lot further away than anticipated.
Well, these things can learn pretty quickly. So one of the things is that I found interesting with the LiDAR, the fact that Apple's using LiDAR is interesting because I know Tesla doesn't, because basically Google has a monopoly on the LiDAR technology, which is why Uber's in trouble for copying them when engineers stealing their stuff. Anyway, so Tesla's just gone all camera to avoid that. And so I'm assuming that Apple, because they're buying it off the shelf, because everything's off the shelf, they won't run into any of those issues themselves. So that could be one of the reasons why they're going off the shelf and just focusing on their unique differentiator, which is the software, which is un-Apple-like. Everything Apple is hardware and software, but
I feel like that if they do end up using other suppliers, seeing how this whole autonomous vehicle stuff goes, they would eventually get to the point where they start making their own, just like they do anyway, where they start making their own chips, making their own. Yeah. It's just something to kind of get into it, get it off the ground,
and then go vertical,
onto the road, however you see. Yeah, the fact that they actually are doing tests is pretty cool. And a real quick one. Apple software. So iWork, GarageBand, and iMovie apps is now free for everyone. So that's pretty much it. Go and download it if you want. And yeah, that brings us to the end of a very environmentally aware episode. So I was definitely loved covering all the different topics, and the main thing we're kind of hanging out for now really is just to see what the next movements are leading up to WWDC.
Yeah, we're near on a month out, so I'm really excited for that. I'll be up at 3:00 in the morning for it, as I'm sure some other people will be, but yeah, it's really cool. So.
And of course, once we have confirmed times and everything, in typical Apple Slice fashion, I put together a video of where you can live stream it in Australia. And to actually catch this announcement, be sure to follow us. So where can people find us?
Yeah, you can follow us on Instagram at Apple Slice Podcast, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Apple Slice Podcast, and on Twitter at Apple Slice AU.
And of course, if you'd like to subscribe, search Apple Slice in your podcast player. But ultimately, we would really appreciate it if you could visit our new website, appleslice.com.au, and you can subscribe directly there. So this has brought us to the end. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
That's all from me.
Cool. No worries. And yeah, if anyone wants to hear about my brother's involvement with Apple News in beta, stick around at the very end of the episode, and please ignore the knife and fork noises that my drunken friend put in there. Anyway, basically, it's been great having a chat, as always, and I'll catch you in the next episode.
Cheers.
The story. I don't know what is that? Let me record.
Yeah, I'm sure about
So it's like the chocolate shop.
Okay, yeah.
This guy,
Around what year?
American guy. I can't remember. Well, if it's 2 years ago, say 2015.
2015?
Yeah, around. Yeah, it's got to be 2015.
Yeah.
Oh well, when did I move to Sydney? Between 2014 and 15.
Yeah. Probably 14. Yeah.
And he's like, this guy comes in, this American guy, and he goes, "Hey man, hey," starting a little bit of chat.
Right.
As you do, to sell them more chocolate. What are you doing in Australia? He's like, I'm helping to launch an app here, and like that we're launching. And I'm like, oh cool. He's like, what is it? He's like, it's the Apple News app. He's like, oh sweet. And he's like, yeah. And then, so like it's kind of me. I'm heading the launch with me and special guys, and I designed the logo and shit. And he's just like, oh sweet. And I'm like, cool. And he's like, yeah, I can aggregate all your news. I'm like, I guess sounds pretty cool. And he's like, yeah. Do you want to go? I'm like, sure. Fuck, why not? Let's have a little tap on the Apple News app. It's like beta version, just like sitting in the thing, having a little scroll through. I have no idea what I'm looking at. I'm like, oh, cool. But I didn't have an iPhone at the time, so I'm just like, oh, I don't know. I've got a Samsung. And he goes, oh, and he just kind of takes it back and then leaves.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.